How goes it, YouTube? Creepy Readings here. As always, the link to where I got the stories will be in the description. If you enjoy my reading, be sure to like it up. I upload every Monday, so be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. But now, friends, it's time for the real reason you're here. 3 short horror stories. The first is called They Live in the Woods. The second is called The Wolf Among Us. And the third is called The Human Vehicle. In troubled times, it's the eldest who are the last to go. I can attest to that, being the only one left in the village, still alive to eat the last of the rations. It is a poor last meal, a simple stew, but oddly comforting. Somehow, I manage to keep my hand from trembling as I bring the bowl to my mouth, finishing the last drop. The creatures stare at me from outside my broken window, waiting for me to finish dinner. One of them, with chubby little cheeks and a heart-shaped birthmark on her forehead, gives me a grin, revealing pointed devil teeth. I assume they're just being polite. We're hoping the stew will add a few more grams to this half-starved frame. I can't help but notice the little bones decorating their pelts. Probably the bones of older siblings. The children were the first to be attacked, dragged away into the cold dark. They ventured into the forest to gather firewood or scrounge for food. The younger you are, the harder it is to survive these cold, cruel winters, especially when they appeared a year later. As time passed, they became more bold, stealing into huts the dead of the night, leaving half-eaten bodies, messages written in blood stain the victims' walls, little misspelled words or pictures, gibberish for the most part. Although a heart decorated my house when it was my wife's turn. We tried setting guards out, but it was difficult to manage more than a desperate shout or feebly push them away. They just smile and stare hungrily at us from behind trees. We gave up after a week. After all, it was hard enough leaving them for the first time. Leading them deep into the woods, their trusting hands enveloped in ours. In terrible times, it's hard enough to feed oneself, let alone a family. So we led the little ones, our youngest sons and daughters, deep into the forest and left, refusing to look back, lest we see the tears freezing on cherubic cheeks. In such times, the youngest are always the first to go. I first noticed dead birds around my house several months ago. Usually, these sorts of things don't bother me, but I was intrigued by the way they died. Their little bodies were mangled beyond belief. But I remembered that my neighborhood had a large feral cat population and wrote it off as normal. That was until a few weeks later, the feral cats and other small critters started appearing dead the same way as the birds were. Whatever got to them was a surprisingly clean predator. The bodies were exsanguinated despite the brutal fashion in which they were killed. Animal control blamed it on wolves. Yeah, right. What kind of wolf is native to suburban Long Island? But I quickly forgot about it. After all, I did have finals to study for and a new episode of Game of Thrones. Then, the first missing child poster came up. It took days to find little Timothy, but when they did, he was exsanguinated and eviscerated just like all the other animals they found before him. Curfew was declared, and the police vigilantly patrolled the streets. Animal control was determined to find the wolves. I had my doubts. No predator I knew of could drain blood like that. I pushed the thoughts out of my head and let the professionals do their job. For a while, I felt safe. Days passed. Animal control finally caught what they claimed to be their culprit. Local news boasted of their valiant effort with a picture of a dead wolf. Despite Timothy's death, the town was in good spirits and celebrated their victory. Curfew was lifted, and life returned to normal. One night, on my way home, I heard rustling through the trees and muffled cries. I froze. The cries gave way to a wet, squelching sound. I turned my smartphone light on and flashed it through the trees. There it was, a pale female figure, hunched over a man. A long, proboscis-like structure latched onto the man's chest and was greedily sucking blood from his heart. I stood frozen in fear. She suddenly turned and charged towards me at inhuman speed. In panic, I snapped a tree branch off and swung it, scratched her the eye. She nursed her wound as I bolted. I immediately dialed 911 and screamed, "I saw a vampire. It's killing a man outside. Send anyone. Hurry." The cops arrived. I tried to explain what I saw. I even led them to where I was, but it was empty. No man. No pale lady. The cops looked annoyed. "It was here," I screamed. I was told to calm down. In a fit of rage, I pushed the police officers. One of them tased me. My consciousness drifted into blackness. I woke up, strapped to a hospital bed. The nurse came in and said, "You have a visitor." It was my mom. "Oh, thank God, Mom. You're not going to believe." I choked on my words as I noticed the large scar on my mother's eye. From the moment I was born, I had no say. At the whim of the insignificant mind under control, out from my now functioning lungs and through my neck came a loud, high-pitched cry. It was confusing at first, but in time, I learned to trust the one that guided me through the obstacles I believed I could never surpass on my own. We developed a relationship, for he was the teacher, and I was to observe his movements. We learned to feel. He taught me humor and happiness, as well as sadness and regret. One day, while we were playing together in the park, he accidentally cut my arm. He wept for me that day and helped me heal the cut. He showed me how much he cared for my safety that day. It was when I trusted him the most that he betrayed me. It was the day we learned to ride a bicycle. We had just gotten the hang of it and were so happy. We were so happy that we didn't dare stop riding and make that happiness go away. We rode through the neighborhood laughing like idiots. It was when we were about to reach the next sidewalk that I felt it. We didn't reach that sidewalk. Instead, I felt my legs crunch hard into the frame of my bike and the feeling of lunging forward at a rapid pace. I was in so much pain, it reminded me of when I got cut in the park, which is why, just like when I got cut, I waited for him to get up and help me out. 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. What's going on? It was at this point that a crowd gathered around me. I knew we really needed to get up and go home and fix this. Then the pain started to become unbearable. I pleaded for him to move. He needed to help me. I'm his friend. We did everything together. Why won't he help me? Rage and confusion built in my heart like never before. 6 minutes. Why won't he help me? Was he just using me this whole time like a pawn? Now here in this dire moment is when he refuses to help me? And there you have it, folks. 3 short horror stories. This is a new channel, but we are by no means a stranger to the old YouTubes. Your help is greatly appreciated, and together, we can do great things.